Good morning from Groundswell. This event describes itself as a festival of regenerative farming, and it takes place here on the Cherries family farm in Hertfordshire. Now, there isn't just one definition of what regenerative farming is, but really it centres on soil, improving it, protecting it, broadening the diversity of the crops grown, and introducing animals back into the mix. As we'll hear, it also embraces now healthier food and resilience. This is the 10th Groundswell. Now, I was at one of the very first, which honestly was a small meeting of some people, I think in a shed. These days it is very different. It's a very big show. It takes over 2 or 3 fields. There's one where you've got machinery being demonstrated. The one I'm in has tents, teepees, loads of people all wandering around wanting to learn more. Now, one thing that's caught my eye is we've actually got some crop plots here, but most of them seem to be flowers.
Hi, my name's Alicia Martin, so I work as Frontier Environmental Crops. So this is a couple of different mixtures that we've got going on. So cornfield annuals just at the far side. So coming out in flower, you can see all the bees just across them.
So to the uninitiated like me, that's sort of daisies and poppies, I think, and
cornflower and corn cockle that we've got going on there. So
and then in front of it, these red ones.
That's the crimson clover. So beautiful plant when it gets going, very bright, very colourful.
Now, just to explain who Frontier is, you're a big company formed actually about 20 years ago now by 2 even bigger companies, Cargill and ABF, Associated British Foods, very much at the big corporate end of agriculture. Why come to Groundswell?
It's something that we've supported for a long time. So Groundswell's been going for 10 years, but we've actually been here for 9 of those years. We are the cover crop partner, and it's something that we just want to showcase the different types of things that we can help farmers to increase that resilience and offer the right products so they can learn how to utilise these different mixtures on farms.
And cover crops is a really big part of regenerative agriculture. What's the idea of them? How do they work?
So cover crops are something that we would make sure that we're using in the right system in order to particularly hold on to soils. We're holding on to the nutritional side, and we're also making sure that the soil's not leaving the area. So we're seeing these increased rainfalls, more intense rainfalls, and that in turn can lead to erosion, or it can lead to leaching of nutrient. So we're making sure that we've got those deep tap roots going into the ground, improving that soil health, and in general just improving the soil.
How would a farmer then use a cover crop in amongst the crops that are actually going to make money for them?
So you would tend to use it more before a spring crop. So we would be looking at putting it in before spring barley, spring oats. But when we use those, we've got a bare period of soil. We need to put something in the ground to make sure that we've got those living roots actually holding onto those soils over the winter period.
Growing something that is potentially higher value but also lower yielding presents real risks, and that's where the route to market is so critical.
Well, I'm just making my way across the site here at Groundswell. It's so big actually that this year for the first time I have got a little bit lost. One of the things that is, I think, probably unique to this particular event is that there are lots and lots of tents where talks are going on, and so you've got lots of people rushing between them. I'm just outside the Pasture for Life tent. They are talking about sheep. One of the big things about regenerative systems is that you try and get livestock in to bring fertility back to the land. Just over here, this is the Soil Medic tent, and here they are talking about pulses, growing different things on the farm.
What do I need to change in my system? How do I need to change my machinery? What are the practical elements?
So I asked just a few people what they were hoping to hear today.
This year for me, a lot of it is about baseline collection, data collection. So we have a farm that we've been doing regenerative agriculture on for nearly 20 years, but accidentally. So I didn't measure things when I started, and it just evolved. I want to know what I need to collect, how often I need to collect it, where I need to send it to, and hopefully create a system that other people can follow.
For me today, I think it's the interlink between climate and health. I think there's also the kind of interlink between our health and soil quality. So I'm about to head to the talk now around soil.
Looking at quite a few to do with sheep, what we can do with wool. We have quite a lot of surplus wool on the farm.
I'm thinking of trees and pasture, trying to improve the environment and biodiversity. That's my plan.
Well, one of the people who is speaking at this year's Groundswell is with me now, Chris van Tulleken, obviously known here on Radio 4 as half of the doctors. Also campaigns and writes on ultra-processed food, but if I'm honest, not the person I was expecting to find at an agricultural event.
Oh, really?
Yeah, why are you here?
Well, I'm here because I work on the opposite end of this thing we call a food system to everyone here. And I and my colleagues study the effects of the output, the stuff we put in our bodies on bodies and human health. But the food system, of course, affects our health indirectly by filling our atmosphere with greenhouse gases, our oceans with plastic, pesticides, lots and lots of other environmental effects. And so my feeling is that most of the community here at Groundswell want the same thing that my community of academics and clinicians want, which is a more just food system. And that the primary problem with our food system is that it is extremely unjust. You talk about that I campaign on ultra-processed food. I'm quite indifferent to whether people eat ultra-processed food or not. What I care about is the injustice in the system and the harms fall disproportionately in the UK on the people with the least power, with the least money, and that is true globally as well.
What do you hope farmers who'll come to hear you speak, what do you hope they will take away with them?
I believe that we need to pull on the same levers, which is to change the food that people want. And so I would like their support in making these things voting issues. I'm not a campaigner, I'm a BBC presenter, I'm a scientist though, and I think the evidence is very clear that people have a right to honestly labelled food. And at the moment, unhealthy food, which the government describes as unhealthy, high-fat, salt, sugar food, has no label on it. No label. It's impossible.
Well, it has the warning system, doesn't it?
No,
the green,
it doesn't.
Red,
no, it doesn't.
Amber.
No, it doesn't. That's a voluntary system, and that is unlinked from the government definition of high-fat, salt, sugar. So there are traffic lights which are voluntary. A fizzy soda full of sugar and phosphoric acid gets 3 green traffic lights at least. The diet ones get 4 green traffic lights. And that has nothing to do with this HFSS definition that's the regulatory definition. So, no, it is impossible. If you go and pick a product out of a vending machine, you cannot know if it is formally unhealthy or not. And so my pitch is going, once we start accurately describing unhealthy food to consumers, they start to want different things. And once you start buying a piece of chicken rather than a chicken nuggety breaded thing, once you buy a potato rather than a potato shape, you demand a different price for your chicken and potato, and you demand that potato and chicken is farmed in a different way. And we know that because when you go and buy a piece of chicken, it's advertised as being high welfare, low antibiotic, UK farmed, organic, pasture raised, grass fed, all these things. We care when we buy food. When you buy a pre-made cake, do you ever worry about whether the eggs were free range or organic? Do you care where the milk came from? You do not care at all, and none of us do. We assume someone else has made the decision. If you want to farm differently, the population has to demand different food. And if the population understood food, if the packages were honestly labelled, they do demand different food.
Chris van Tulleken there. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I did come to one of the very early Groundswells. I'm not entirely sure which one, if I'm honest, which was really just like a little meeting, as I remember it, in a barn in the rain. I'm with a group of people who have been to a lot of Groundswells. I'm going to start with Andrew Marn, who's a farm manager on a massive family-owned estate. What number Groundswell did you come to?
So I was at the very first one 10 years ago, up in the Black Barn, as you said, with the drill demos across the road. I can remember John Cherry standing up at a meeting saying, we're going to have a little gathering at our farm and just see how it goes. And it might be of interest to a few of you to come along. And it was fantastic. It was great. And this has grown and grown ever since. Yeah,
here we are 10 years later, and it's unrecognisable, isn't it? What made you want to come in the first place?
I think for me, I changed my farming practice following the harvest of 2012. So we moved to more no-till, more regen type. It was more called conservation ag back then, but it's known as regen today. But we moved to that practice in 2013. And so this coming along 3 years in for me was terrific. Like it's everything I need in one place to come and get information.
Sitting next to you is Johnny Wake. Johnny, what number were you?
2. Yeah, 2.
And why did you come?
So many reasons. I'm a fake farmer. I'm not trained as a farmer at all. So I suppose one of the reasons I came along was to try and learn when I didn't have a clue, and we didn't know what regen was then at all. And we had lots of challenges on the farm. We're heavy land. We had quite a lot of blackgrass problems. So we recognised that something needed to change, and this seemed like a good place to come. And I thought it was really about looking at drill demos when I came, but actually it was about so much more than that. And I remember vividly some of the talks I saw in that very first time I came, including John Cherry saying, you don't have to do it overnight, you can take years to do it. And that was actually, although it's really obvious, it was a revelation for me and really opened things up for me.
Why didn't either of you think about going organic? What was it about regenerative that made it better for your farm systems than going organic?
For me, I was trying to rectify serious soil issues, and that, I think Regen takes more account of soil. I didn't want to sort of lose all the tools in the toolbox either. I want to use less pesticides, get less synthetics, but I didn't want to make that jump to organic overnight either.
Yeah, and a similar answer for me. I don't think it's either or. We're on a journey. I hate that very cheesy phrase, but we are moving towards being more resilient in everything that we do, and organic is just a particular label that's a particular way of doing that. The way we're farming, regen farming, involves lower inputs. So you'll be using less fertiliser and making that more targeted, for example, or you'll be using muck. You'll be reducing any kind of plant protection products that you might have used otherwise. And everything is about going back to as simple and cheap and natural as you can have it within reason.
Also with us is Hazel Church-Towler. Hazel, you're a almost recent attendee. You joined at Groundswell 5, I think.
I did indeed, yeah.
And why did you come?
We were arable looking to go more towards livestock because we were already running 300 ewes and we wanted to go back into cattle. So we were looking at how we could try and do things a bit differently, and have done that more since coming. I think the first time Dad and I came, we looked around going, oh my goodness, this is like a proper farming show where you can learn something. Because we'd been to other events where they were more, you buy something, whereas actually we felt we could actually learn something here that we could take back to farm and put into practice.
When you all first started looking at going regen, what was the reaction from friends and family? And how's that changed, Hazel, over the years?
They all thought I was mental. And I think, actually, now they get the idea that we're just trying to improve our soils, become more resilient, reduce our costs. We were spending out huge amounts of money on be it straw or feed or whatever it was. Actually, the less costs we can have in our system, the better that is for our business resilience, but also for our soil health as well.
Did you get some raised eyebrows, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one as a farm manager because I've got to sell it to the people who actually own the farm, and they back me. They've been very supportive, but it sometimes feels like you're a bit of an island. Not many of my neighbours would be agreeing with what I'm doing, but you come to Groundswell, you're with like-minded people like Johnny and Hazel, and it gives you that injection of enthusiasm to keep going and go further.
Well, I never came back to the farm and said, right, we're going to go regen. It was we need to do some spring cropping to combat the blackgrass. We need to reduce our tillage to do that as well. So each stage has been, well, is there a pushback on that stage? It's not about regen farming as a whole. I think that's far more widely accepted within the industry, and it's generally accepted that we can't carry on as we used to in the 80s and 90s. So it's about what changes we make rather than the labels we put on it.
You've had a tough few years in farming. Do you think the way you have changed your businesses is helping you through this bit, Hazel?
Yeah, massively. I think just for for our cost of production, with things like BPS going, and we had to look at how we were going to make this payment. Yeah, direct payment. We had to look at how we were going to make that more resilient going forward.
Again, the resilience seems to be a real theme amongst us all, but it certainly is more resilient. We can chop and change. We can go with the flow depending on the season much easier, and it's a much more relaxed way of farming.
Johnny?
Yeah, resilient is obviously the word, isn't it? But it's just made everything cheaper and easier for us. And when trouble comes down the road, not only are our soils more resilient, but our bank balances too.
And that's it from us here at Groundswell. I'm Charlotte Smith, and the producer was Beatrice Fenton. Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.